Hey everyone, Gaijin Guinea Pig here, and this video, you can probably tell it's a little different. It's not a reaction video, it's just talking to you, dear viewer, about my past experience or the past year living here in Tokyo as an American, what that's been like. I thought I would just make a video kind of talking about expectations versus reality, why I'm here, has it been worth it, the good, the bad, the ugly, etc. And hopefully you'll find it entertaining slash informative. Who knows? It might even help you on whatever path that you're on. Maybe you're on a similar path to mine. Who knows? But anyway, let's just get into it so it's not overly long. But if you don't know, my name is Jason. I think I rarely say my actual name. I just go by Gaijin Guinea Pig just because, but yeah, it's Jason. I've been in Tokyo since October of 2023. And my whole reason for being here is to learn Japanese. I've been going to a Japanese language school here full time, Monday through Friday. Just really trying to take my studies seriously. Learning Japanese has been something that I've been interested in for a really long time, but I never really took it seriously back in the States. I'm from Colorado, by the way. And it was just one of those things that, maybe I mess around on Duolingo or pick up a few things here or there passively by watching anime or some sort of Japanese drama, maybe listening to Japanese music. But it was never anything I took seriously. But it was always something that I enjoyed, and it was something that I knew I wanted to pursue. And my personality type is very much like, once I get my sights set on something, I'm just like a rabid dog, and I get obsessive, and it's like the only thing I want to focus on. So, where I was career-wise was very comfortable. I was content. Some people might say I was crazy for leaving that job and moving halfway around the world just to study a language. But as I've gotten older and just talked to different people that are close to me in my life, I've learned the importance of experiences over material things. So, you know what they say, you only have one life. It's all about how you use it, right? All of that mushy stuff aside, that's what I decided to do. I just said, hey, I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to go study Japanese. So yeah, that's why I'm here. So why Tokyo? Well, many years ago, probably 2011, wow, it's been 13 years, I used to live in Kyushu, on the island of Kyushu of Japan. I was teaching English. I did that for 3 years. And it was in a small rural area, which was fine. At first, I was a little shocked by it, but I really got accustomed to it. It was fine. But after I went back to America and I was sort of brainstorming ways to get back to Japan and ultimately landed on studying Japanese as a good option, I thought, well, let me have a completely opposite experience from the one I had before. So teaching in a rural countryside area, let's just flip it. Let's have learning Japanese in probably the biggest metropolis in the world. Super city life, right? So that's what I did. Plus, I figured if I'm going to be studying in Tokyo, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for maybe part-time jobs, just meeting people in general, having more of a social life than the one that I had back in America because I was working remotely. And yeah, it's really hard to have a social life when you're working from home. But anyway, that's why I chose Tokyo. So I found a school, and yeah, I have to say that studying Japanese Monday through Friday at an actual brick and mortar school where there are teachers and other classmates, I found that it has been very helpful to me and my learning in having something to hold me accountable for my learning and my progress. Like I said, passively learning back in the States, having no one to hold me accountable or no one to confer with on a consistent basis and test my knowledge and all of those things, you're probably not going to make much progress, or it's going to be really slow going. So for me, I have to go to class, and then I'd come home, and then I'm doing homework, and I'm reviewing the chapters so that I'm prepared for the next day. And it's all of these things that you're not even necessarily conscious of how much it's helping you, but it has definitely helped me, because I'm having to review kanji like crazy, review the chapters, sort of pre-read everything the day before we actually do it in class. And all of these things are combining, along with the other resources that I use to learn Japanese. And it's all just piling up and making me better at Japanese. I'm certainly not fluent. I'm not going to pretend that I am, but I'm proud of the progress that I've made so far. But this video is not necessarily about my educational experience. I'm thinking of making a separate video about how I got my student visa, how you can go about doing that, what it's like to actually study at a language school here in Japan, and all of those things. I'll put that in a different video. This is just about my experience in Tokyo thus far. So yes, Japanese has definitely improved since I've come here. Cool, check that box. Now, about the Nichijou Seikatsu, or the daily life that I have here, wow, it's completely opposite of the life that I had back in America. Here I am taking the train every day. I walk everywhere. Although recently I did get my driver's license here in Japan, which is kind of exciting, but maybe not so practical when it comes to living in Tokyo, because the trains are just more convenient and there's traffic everywhere, and it just looks like a real pain in the butt to drive anywhere here or to try parking anywhere. But I digress. So in America, I was working from home. I didn't even need a car. Everything was delivered to me. I had to push myself just to get out of the house, just making up excuses for leaving the house to go places, because otherwise I could have just stayed home 24 hours and I would have been fine. Unhealthy, but I would have been fine. Here, I've lost weight because I'm walking everywhere, which has been a nice sort of effect from having to move constantly. I mean, I had a lot of expectations before I came to Tokyo. I think most of us do. Those of us that are interested in Japan and coming to Japan and thinking of Tokyo as the first place that you want to go to. I mean, for obvious reasons. I had been to Tokyo many times. I'm blessed to have had that experience just for vacation reasons. So I had a little bit of an idea on how to navigate the city and what places were sort of tourist spots, etc., and so forth. And it wasn't completely new to me when I came here, when I moved here to start studying. And interestingly enough, the last trip that I took to Tokyo before moving here, I was able to visit my language school and see what it was like firsthand before actually signing up, which was, a useful thing that I'll talk about more in the other video that I'll make about coming here to study. So I guess if I were to go down the list of some of my expectations before I came to Tokyo, it'd be a little bit different from somebody that had never been here before. I mean, we all know that Tokyo is probably the most expensive city in Japan. So yeah, everything costs a little bit more. The cost of rent, groceries, all of those things, utilities, everything costs a little bit more. And what you get for that money naturally is going to be less than if you were in a smaller city or a more rural side of Japan. I had to find my apartment before I came to Japan, and that's really difficult to do. Some of you may have had that experience, having to find an apartment before seeing it in person, maybe even in your own country. That happens sometimes. Everything looks good online, right? Like, that's the idea. The pictures are taken from a certain angle. Everything's designed to sort of make it enticing. So it is hard to judge how good an apartment is online, especially when you don't know the neighborhood. You don't know what the noise is like around the apartment, the safety, etc. Although most of the safety concerns are quite minimal here in Japan, as most of you know. So I just took a leap. I found an apartment. I chose it based off of the train line that was most convenient to get to my school. Plus, I didn't want to live somewhere that was too far away from the school. I didn't want a gnarly commute time, basically. And I got a place that is affordable, especially since the yen is still so weak. It's even more affordable than it would have been. And it is on the Yamanote line, which is the worst train line in Tokyo, probably. I mean, that's arguable, but it super sucks. It's very convenient, but that's why it also sucks. If you know anything about riding the Yamanote line, it's constantly packed because it is so convenient. That makes sense, right? But I don't have to make any transfers, and I can get to my school in less than 15 minutes. Very nice. I think the reality of life in Tokyo is a lot different than it is in a rural area of Japan. In Tokyo, nobody cares that you're a foreigner in the way that they would if you were in some countryside, right? Where maybe they're not used to seeing foreigners, and they might do a double take or look at you like you have a horn growing out of your head. Not because you're weird, it's just because you're different and uncommon from what they're used to seeing. But in Tokyo, like I said, nobody gives a crap that you're a foreigner, which can be quite nice. Sometimes you just want to live your life, you want to just blend in. So the reality of that is quite nice. I have lived the other experience, and sometimes you are not in the mood to be stared at like you have another head growing out of your neck. And I think before you move anywhere, especially if you're going to move abroad, there's a lot of unknowns that are racing through your head. Like, how am I going to get this done? How am I going to get that done? Blah, 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 right? There's all these little pieces of the puzzle that you're trying to figure out in your head how to put them in place. But in my experience, whenever your brain is racing with things like that, it always figures itself out, because that's life. It has to figure itself out. If you're stressed over what am I going to do about these documents that I have to handle at City Hall, and I can't really speak Japanese that well, and trust me, the people at City Hall do not speak English, and they don't give a crap that they don't speak English and you don't speak Japanese, but you will find a way, either through your school or your job, having somebody assist you. Maybe you have a friend that lives here. Maybe you just use the translator app on your phone. It will figure itself out. There are varying levels of difficulty depending on how you go about getting those things done, but none of it's impossible. And then your mind's racing about setting up things like utilities for your apartment, but again, these things just figure themselves out. And it kind of applies to just basic stuff like grocery shopping. Like, I'm thinking, oh my God, where am I getting my groceries? Is there anywhere close by? Then you find a store, and then it becomes your store, and then it becomes part of your routine, just like the routine you have in your life right now in the country that you're in. You have a routine, and the human condition, you just develop a new routine wherever you go. And that's what happened for me here. I have a new routine. It's way different than the one that I had back in the States, but it's a routine nonetheless. It is going to class, coming home, doing homework, studying, going to my usual stores to get things done. I even have a guy locally that cuts my hair. I'm wearing a hat because I'm having a bad hair day, by the way. But all of these things just start falling into place. But as much of a Japanophile as I am, and I'm a big nerd when it comes to Japan, the culture, the language, right? Like, I'm one of those nerdy Japanese lovers. It's not a utopia by any means. There are things about it that I love more. than what my country does. And then there are things that I love about America that Japan doesn't do, and vice versa, right? Like, it's not really about comparing the two countries, but I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that I don't like about my life here in Tokyo. This isn't to throw shade at Japan or Tokyo, by the way. This is just talking about my personal experience. I feel like I have to preface this section with this part because people get very defensive over something that they love, understandably. And I know there's a lot of Japan and Tokyo fans out there that their fingers are already hovering over the keyboard like, oh, you're such a crybaby. Why are you whining? Blah, blah, blah. I would love to be in your position, etc. I know that it's one of the most crowded cities in the world, and I can confirm that it certainly feels that way. And yeah, I don't necessarily love the crowds here. I think that it makes everything more exhausting than it would be anywhere else. So like if you just take a trip to go buy some clothes and you take a couple of trains and then you get to Uniqlo or whatever and it's packed because everything is packed in Tokyo. And then by the time you get those two shirts and you get home, you feel like you've been gone all day when in reality it's been maybe 2 hours. That is a common feeling just from life here. Everything is a little bit more exhausting than it would be anywhere else. But of course, I understand the yin and the yang of Tokyo is that, well, everybody is here because it has everything. It's sort of impossible to be bored in Tokyo, which is something that I like. Like if there's anything that you have an interest in, it's here. If you're bored in Tokyo, then I honestly don't know what interests you because it's here. On the other hand, everybody else got the same memo that everything is in Tokyo, and that's why they're here, and that's why everything is crowded, and every store that you go to is like a Black Friday sale. That's how it feels. I definitely don't like that aspect of life in Tokyo because it just feels like you can't, or it's really difficult to avoid crowds, period. Some of the stores that you would think nobody would be in, even there's a crowd in there. And I understand that, especially right now with the yen being so weak, tourism is bigger than it's ever been probably here in Japan, especially in Tokyo. And it makes things feel even more crowded than it typically would be. But yeah, you can't go anywhere without it being crowded. And because everything's so crowded, there's a lot of lines that form here. And that can be anything from a ramen shop to getting into a smaller, maybe boutique clothing store. There's a lot of lining up happening. And if you're not into lineup culture, that'll probably drive you crazy. Personally, I don't line up for anything. If I see a line, that's like Superman seeing kryptonite. He just goes the other way. It's just my nature. And of course, with all this crowding and people everywhere, it makes the commute a little more hectic or stressful than, I would like it to be. Like, even though my commute to class is 15 minutes or less, depending on delays and just whatever's going on at the station that day, there are times where it is just like those GIFs or those video clips, those viral clips that you've seen where the train guy is pushing people onto the train and everyone is just packed in like sardines. Yeah, sometimes my commute to school is 15 minutes of that. And really the best thing to do at those times is close your eyes, listen to your music, and pray that your stop gets there sooner than it feels like, yeah. While we're on the subject of crowded trains, I'm really shocked at how they haven't really thought of a way to circumvent that. I don't know necessarily how you would solve this problem, but it feels like a massive fire hazard. You know how sometimes buildings or rooms have a capacity, or an elevator has a capacity because there's a weight limit, or it's just so dangerous to have this amount of people in this room because if something happens, people aren't going to be able to escape. If something happened on a train in Tokyo, like a fire broke out, we're all screwed. We're dead. was reading actually that in Seoul, South Korea, some of the more busy train lines during the heavy commute times have removed seating in 2 or 3 train cars to alleviate some of the crowding, which I think is a genius idea. It's a simple way to make the commute a little more comfortable without a huge undertaking, right? And I think that Tokyo would really benefit from that as well. Of course, you can't remove all seating. There are people with disabilities, there are pregnant people, seniors, etc. But for the commute time, like the 9 o'clock peak and like the 5 o'clock peak times in the evening, I think a couple of train cars, 2 or 3 train cars, remove seating except for priority seating. And if everyone has to stand, it's going to create more space. I think that's a genius idea. I wish Tokyo would do it. I don't think anyone should have the luxury of sitting during these peak commute times where so many people are all trying to do the same thing, get to work and get home. But again, I digress. So yes, I think my biggest problem with life in Tokyo, for me personally, is just that you get no relief anywhere from the crowding and the crowds. Of course, I already kind of knew that that was a thing, but yeah, it does get exhausting after a while. And you really look forward to getting back to your apartment. I love my apartment. It is my little oasis. When I get to my train station, I feel like I can just let it out. And like, I know that I'm going to be comfortable. I would say the other thing that's not so pleasant about life in Tokyo, it's not so much a Tokyo problem as it is a big city problem. I think this is a problem that you will find in other major cities, no matter where you are in the world. And it's that people don't have time for one another. They don't have time to be polite. They don't have time to be kind. They are just go, go, go. Everybody's looking out for number one, which means looking out for themselves. And they're not interested in you or whatever you got to say, whatever your business is. Get out of the way, buddy. I got to get from A to B, and I do not need you to be a hurdle in my way. And yeah, that's a big city problem. But of course, Tokyo is a big city, so it's a problem here too. Like a lot of that politeness, that omotenashi that you sort of associate with Japanese culture, you're not really going to get that in Tokyo. That politeness exists more in the quieter, less hectic areas of Japan. In Tokyo, people are just like, get out of my way. I'm not interested in bending over backwards for you or making you feel like okyakusama, okami-sama desu, like the customer is king. You're just another customer. Move, get out of the way. This line is really long. We got to go move on to the next. Of course, there are exceptions, but yes, as a general rule, it's big city life here, and it's busy, busy, busy. It's go, 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 get out of the way. And that can make it feel quite cold, like the people here are cold, but it's more of a survival thing than it is the city just being filled with rude people. It's a survival tactic. And if you're not ready for that, it can be sort of depressing and overwhelming, and yeah, just something to keep in mind. So as of the making of this video, it is the 7th of January. I am currently waiting on immigration to renew my student visa because I plan to continue my studies of the Japanese language for a while longer. I'm not sure how much longer. Maybe I got another year in me, and then we'll see where things go from there. I might end up finding a job. Ultimately, I think it would be great to find a job using Japanese. I mean, after all, I'm investing quite a lot of time and money into learning it, but we'll see. I mean, you can't force those things, but you can certainly look for them. And I want to take the Japanese language proficiency test this summer. It's held twice a year, July and December. I'm going to try and take the N2 test this July. I've only taken the test once in the States, and that was the N5. and that was December of 2022, and I passed that fairly easily. But now I'm studying into level Japanese, and I'm going to try, because a lot of the jobs here in Japan, you need to have at least into level Japanese proficiency in order to be considered for the job. And that means being able to speak Japanese at more than just a conversational level. That means being able to speak it at a business level. Throw it in some business jargon, knowing how to communicate with customers and coworkers, etc. That more than on a casual sort of retail customer service level. So that's the goal for 2025. Keep on going with my studies, see where it takes me. Keep doing my reaction videos. Don't worry about that. I'll throwing in some more variety with my channel, hopefully. If there's anything that you'd like to see about my life in Japan, let me know. You can follow me on Instagram at Gaijin Guinea Pig, where I post little videos and pictures of time to time on a more frequent basis. And it gives you a little bit of an insight as to what my daily life is like. Yeah, I just wanted to make this video and talk about the past year here in Tokyo and what that's been like. And if you have any questions, if there's anything you want to know, let me know in the comments. Who knows, I might even end up doing a Q&A video, frequently asked questions video. We'll see where it all goes. I'm just doing things naturally as I think of them. But yes, as always, thank you so much for helping my small channel grow. Thank you for watching this video, and I will catch you in the next one.